to go live.
There.
Okay, so we talked about a lot of scenarios for this group project, and what finally helped us land on this topic is Melissa presented this topic to us, and we discovered that John and Melissa are both dealing with a family member who has Alzheimer's disease. Do you guys feel comfortable talking about that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Who in your family has Alzheimer's disease? John?
Well, in my family, it's not somebody who's super close to me. It's my aunt who married into the family. Her mother has Alzheimer's, and it's kind of like the scenario we just talked about in our presentation, where the the mother escaped one night. She just wandered out of the house, and they couldn't find her. The police picked her up like 2 days later because she was wandering. Um, and they brought her back to the house, and that's when they did tests, and they realized she had Alzheimer's disease. And also, my aunt's sister was staying with her, kind of like Larry staying with Sarah in this presentation we did. And she was actually stealing the mother's money and beating her up because she couldn't get her uh, to listen to her because her mother was very angry, frustrated, and a lot of times she didn't know what was going on. So the only way she knew how to handle her was to beat her up. So my aunt took her mother in, and now the mother's living with them, and they're trying to find a place for her to live, kind of like in this presentation. So pretty close. This presentation was pretty close to what my aunt's been going through.
Were there ever formal services that were provided by state agencies or county agencies?
Yes, actually, there is. They found they worked with a social worker to find her a place to assisted living place to stay at. Well, actually, they're still in the process of doing that right now.
Okay.
So they're trying to find a place for her, and that's all I really know right now.
Okay. Melissa, do you feel comfortable discussing a little bit more about the person in your family who's an individual with Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, I've actually had a couple people in my family. It's actually really strong in my family, which is kind of scary. My mom just turned 70, and I'm a little fearful about it with her because I'm noticing that she's really forgetting a lot of stuff, like conversations. She'll repeat herself a lot, and I don't know, kind of, I'm starting to watch out for it a little bit. But my great-grandmother, who, she was, the sweetest lady, and I used to go over to her house, and she'd make me tea, and we'd play cards and all that stuff. And this lady never swore. She never said a harsh word about anybody. And she developed Alzheimer's. And at that time, because I was probably about 16 at that time. And at that time, they didn't really have a lot of services for that. It was pretty much just thought of, the way old people get. There wasn't a lot of research on it or anything yet. So they just put her in a hospital. And, like when she got too bad to stay at home, and she started getting violent actually, and it was really sad. I only saw her once in the hospital because my mom wouldn't let me go. She didn't want me to see her like that. And it was not easy. I went in there and she was just cussing like a sailor. And it was the only time, it was sad because it was like she was really lost and angry, like you were saying, John. And it was, it's really hard to see somebody in that situation. Yeah. And she eventually did pass away. She wasn't really in there probably like 3 weeks, and she passed away. But like I said, there was nothing they could do for her because she's at that time they didn't really know a lot. But then my grandmother also had Alzheimer's on my mom's side. So, but she actually, I mean, I hate to say it's a blessing, but she had other health problems. So she didn't get full-blown Alzheimer's. I mean, it was really, in the like the middle stages of it. But then I guess three people, because my aunt, my mom's aunt, my grandma's sister, she's still living, and my mom took care of her. She would drive down every weekend. It was like a 2-hour drive. And she would stay with her for the weekend and, make sure she was okay. And then my aunt also had other people living close to her that would help her. But I'm telling you, she went downhill so fast. She, it went from, I swear, like 2 weeks, putting her in a home, between keeping her at home and having to put her in a home. And she didn't know who anybody was.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is that every time my mom goes there, she says, I'm going home tomorrow. It's like that's the only thing in her head is that she's going home. And it's really sad. It's a devastating illness. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's traumatic for families too, because when that person that you love doesn't know you anymore, and it like this scenario here, it was so it's really real because people want their parents to be happy. They want them to stay in their house because they know that's what they want, and they feel like they'll be comfortable there. But then you have the whole thing like John was talking about, about the abuse and that, because they don't know how to handle them.
Yeah.
And then they get angry and frustrated, and that kind of thing happens. So.
Yeah. And it's tough when people don't realize that there's supports in the community that are available. And, we see it too often where, authorities get called and allegations of abuse or neglect occur, and that's when people are able to get, finally start to get support. I wish that we could do a better job as a society really being more proactive with the support that we're giving instead of responding, with abuse and neglect calls. Yeah. Do you think that the group interventions that were used is something that would have been helpful to your family to work through any difficult decisions that would have been needed to occur?
Oh yeah, because when you're not in the situation, you don't know, what you have to deal with or what it's all about.
Yeah.
And like my mom, she had one relative call her and say, I just went to see, her name's Vida, but she said, I went to see Aunt Vida, and she never even remembered you coming in there. You don't have one to see her. My mom's like, I see her every weekend. Well, she didn't say that. Well, she's got Alzheimer's. It's a whole...
Yeah. So that's how the miscommunications in the family can start happening.
I mean, they have somebody else that could really come in and talk to other family members or friends or whatever that can kind of help to, like you do, like mediate, But like you said, people don't know what's out there. They don't know what help is available. They don't know where to turn.
As far as the nonviolent communication process that was utilized in one of the interventions, that one really focused on the two different sides, listening to each other's feelings and their needs, and they're trying to create a solution out of that with the support of the group facilitator. But in my opinion, I feel like the NVC process takes a higher level of emotional intelligence. Do you guys feel like in a realistic situation that emotionally people would be available enough to do the NVC process in a situation like this?
I don't think. I think in reality, it'd be hard to administer the nonviolent communication process. I mean, it's if one person knows, if one person like Marshall Rosenberg said, it's like, he knew how to do the nonviolent communication thing, but if somebody else has jackal ears per se, it just may be really difficult to get them to really hear like the other person.
Yeah, I feel similar to John. I feel like nonviolent communication could work in a setting like we had it in our role play, with two parties and a mediator. That would kind of be like best case scenario. But I know like in, my husband's grandmother had Alzheimer's when we had first, she was kind of starting with dementia, and then it turned into Alzheimer's right when we had come back to North Carolina. And there were 4 siblings and my husband's grandfather. So they all were, they would have constant family meetings and, what do we do with her? And then there's also, his grandfather that they had to take into consideration too, because even though he's, mentally still there, he's, he was older. And so I think that in that kind of scenario where you have more siblings or more kids or more parties involved, common ground kind of works. And I think I'd like common ground more in general, only because I seem to be more of a peacekeeper. I don't want conflict, and it's just nice to kind of get everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Common ground has less steps, I felt like when we were doing the role play, I was like, okay, look at the agenda, step 1, step 2, step 3, and I know it says that all steps aren't needed, but with these situations that we had, there's just so much history that I feel like we probably would have had to definitely utilize all of the steps.
Yeah. I was going to say, too, I feel like nonviolent communication almost feels like a therapy session.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, I obviously have nothing against therapy, but people that are in a situation, kind of like Larry and Janie, where actual adult protective services was called, they're going to kind of be a little bit more on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Or anytime something like that is involved. So I feel like that, how do you feel? How are your feelings about this? What do you think your sister feels? People always associate feelings with therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And that's tough because I know for me at my current job, I have to see how other people in the team feel, but at the end of the day, those other people are not my client. My client is the child. Mm-hmm. So our client in this situation would have been Sarah. So ultimately, yes, we need to work with Larry and Janie to make a solution happen, but at the end of the day, Sarah is the person that we have to make sure that we're protecting. Yeah. So I completely agree with you.
That's a good point, Ashley.
Yeah.
Some of the techniques that I thought were really beneficial and helpful were the use of the agenda. I really liked that we made sure that we introduced ourselves, that everybody knew what everyone's roles were, because had I just started the meeting and I didn't tell everybody why I was there, that could have made people feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. I could have been like, who are you two? Larry and Janie.
Yeah.
So, and your level of involvement, I think hearing more about Janie's explanation, I work in a busy high-tech firm, that did fill in some information for me as a facilitator as to maybe why you weren't as present in the process with supporting Sarah and her health needs.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Because I feel the same way. I mean, as the representative for Adult Protective Services, I feel like I spoke with Larry because he's the one that is in the home that I was actually investigating. And so when I come in, I already kind of have a rapport built with him,
Mhm.
and then, Janie's probably like, well, who the heck are you? Or you're the one
Yeah.
that just wants to take my mother away.
Yeah.
And I like to have that chance to say, no, that's not my job. We're all on the same page trying to keep, your mother safe.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely plan on using these techniques in the future when I identify situations that will fit them. I'm going to keep them in my back pocket, in my toolbox, and I look forward to pulling them out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.